Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is 4 after 12 o'clock and we are joined by the second Rihanna on the show today. This time around it's Rihanna Musaji and she's going to talk about her new initiative or something that she is introducing in the area that she lives in. Rihanna, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program and what a pleasure to have you on the show.
Walaikum salam, Julian. Thank you for inviting me.
I must tell you, I had Rihanna Edwards on my show early on this morning, and I did mention that you actually referred me to her. I had her on my show a long time ago, and this time around I've had her on talking about the award that she's received, the Goldman Sachs reward. So thank you for those referrals. She remembers you very, very fondly.
So of course, Julie, I think as a community, we're all super proud, not just of what Rihanna has done and the Goldman Sachs Award, but Sorry for Change really being a project that speaks to sustainability, to job creation, to women empowerment, and super proud of my namesake and a fellow sister.
And I'm super proud of you, my dear friend. Now, you know, you are known as the Barefoot Facilitator. Let's just start at that point. Give us a brief outline as to what is it that you do as a Barefoot Facilitator. And then I'd like to talk to you about your latest initiative. This is about giving back. And I must, alhamdulillah, whomever I've had on the show today, starting with Rihanna Edwards and then Zainul Kaji from Awqaf, they're having this amazing webinar tomorrow for National Worlds Week, also putting back into the community. And here we have Rehaana Moosajee that's going to be doing the same. And right after you, we're going to be talking to Junaid Bayat, who is also doing something for the youth of South Africa. He is giving free online tuition to matriculants this year. So I'm just blown away by all of these amazing people. Who and what is the Barefoot Facilitator all about?
Okay, so Julie, the Barefoot Facilitator is my company. I founded the company initially it was Rehaana Moosajee Consulting, and then it had a name change around 2017, end of 2017. So the company is the Barefoot Facilitator. That's my company, predominantly offering facilitation services and process work. And the initiative that you've invited me to talk about today is actually funded by the company. So the company has now set up a fund called the Nyuki Fund, Nyuki being Swahili for bees, and really working on the notion of productivity, getting people to be productive, having dignity, and giving people a little bit of an opportunity to fulfill their potential. And the first project, well, the Nyuki Fund has done some other stuff, but, very quickly realized that those initiatives were not particularly sustainable. So the idea of just kind of handing out funds to people without a clear plan didn't seem like it was going anywhere, and quite quickly pulled back from that initiative, which didn't get any publicity, but it started during COVID-19 really as an opportunity to assist people who were struggling, and then opted, Julie, to start Crosby I Care as the first project of the Nyuki Fund. Crosby is the suburb that I live in. I run a home office. My home office is based in Crosby. I live, alhamdulillah, across from a very beautiful park, which over a period of time had become quite derelict. And very sadly, Julie, people living around the park, responsible for dumping on the park and just not taking care of the space. So during this period of lockdown, or just post the kind of very severe lockdown, I had very seriously locked down. My locks were literally on the gates and I hadn't been out. And when I stepped out and saw the state of the park, I was horrified. And decided, rather than complain and moan and groan, is there something that we can do? And gave the opportunity to two people from the informal settlement up the road, Slovo Park Informal Settlement, to earn a stipend. So they clean the park, Given and Yvonne are cleaning the park Monday to Friday. And then I clean myself on a Saturday and a Sunday. Horrified, Julie, horrified to tell you that we're removing almost one bag of garbage per day, which is quite
So,
concerning.
yeah, you have two people working Monday to Friday cleaning, with the upkeep of the cleaning of the park. You then do it on a weekend. So, who are the people that frequent the park and cause all the mess? Because I know directly behind the park is a school. I'm certain it's not the school kids. I'd like to think not.
So Julie, the park is quite interesting in that it's also a throughway. So
Ah,
there are many people who kind of walk through the park to access from one part of Crosby to the other. So, clearly those are people, but I mean, I don't have a sense just from observing people's behavior that those are the people necessarily who are dumping in the park. So one has found, and quite sadly, Julie, in the last couple of days, I've become a little bit of a detective investigator type individual. So when I see kind of street trees having been cut or someone's garden refuse, I've been matching leaves and branches. And sad to tell you that, in fact, it does seem to be homeowners who live around the park who are the people who are dumping there, which is very sad. But anyway, Julie, Crosby I Care is really intended to restore civic pride. So one part is the park, but also have gifted some equipment to the residents of Slovo Park to start their own cleaning at the informal settlement as well. So they're cleaning, both the external environment and the toilets. I'm not necessarily checking up on that. I've gifted the equipment and they send some photographs from time to time to show what they've been doing. And then interestingly, Julie, Given, who is one of the individuals who's cleaning the park, has now decided to they bring almost between 50 and 100 young kids, boys from Slovo, afternoons, kind of after 4:30, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. And these kids, a group of volunteers from Slovo are now coaching and training the children. And so the Nuki Fund has also, and Crosby I Care has also gifted some soccer balls and some vests, bib vests, to the kids, just to give them, a sense of pride in what it is that they're doing. So it's a small initiative, Julie, in the bigger scheme of things, but alhamdulillah, it does feel important in that it allows me to take a lot of the theory work I do in process facilitation and practicalize it with this project.
Look, I think I'm actually amazed and truly impressed by what you're doing. Just imagine, and I said this in the introduction, just imagine, Rehaana, if all of us, or the majority of us in whichever area we live in, if we could take ownership of not necessarily the entire area, but a couple of streets, or let's even break it down further, just the street we live in. Take ownership of that street, to take care of that street in terms of upkeep, in terms of cleaning up litter and whatever else. And if there are underprivileged people or areas close by to where we're living, then see how we can make a difference by, just giving them back their dignity, creating a small little job for them, and collectively we can make such a huge difference. Just imagine how this can be replicated and how successful it can be.
So Julie, the idea, I think, was partially, from seeing the state of the park, but also I had been doing some facilitation work for the social employment program through the presidency. And what was interesting is Kate Phillip, who is in the presidency running this program, said something that really struck me. She said, there's no shortage of work to be done, yet there are no jobs. And this notion of work for common good. So it's not a job. I want to emphasize it's not a full-time job. It's not at the minimum wage. It literally is a stipend for somebody to be able to put some food on the table. I mean, when we started the project, Julie, we also, on the first day got about 10 people in and then gave them grocery vouchers for the supermarket just behind my home office. So, I mean, it's a bit of a circular economy thing as well, where people can take the grocery vouchers, go to the local cafe. get some food, and it is not about, giving them what I think they need. It's leaving people to select what they require. And yes, I mean, I'm hoping, Julie, that inshallah other people feel inspired to, in some way or form, start something to deal with the level of unemployment in the country. And it doesn't have to be jobs. I think there is the opportunity, but for me, it's also the dignity people have when they've worked for something, as opposed to just this notion of standing in long queues and getting handouts. So it is about a range of things, and alhamdulillah, it's been wonderful to see, like, just more and more kids arriving in the afternoons, and the park is actually becoming lively and alive, and the sounds of children running and laughing and playing. And for me,
as
that's
it
what
should
community
be,
building is
as
about.
it should be.
Absolutely.
What
Absolutely.
I'm also wondering, Rihanna, people watching us this morning, wanting to start a similar initiative in the areas that they live in, but have never ever been involved in this type of work. And you're an activist. You're an old hand at things like this. How do they get started? How do they ensure that it is sustainable? And we're not talking a salary per se, we are talking stipend. And then I'm also thinking at the same time, how many of us do not have unused sporting equipment, sporting clothing, and a whole host more? How can we then get involved and make sure that it's going to a good cause, it's going to be used as it was intended to be used?
So Julie, I mean, one of the things that happened is, in this period, I had the opportunity to watch a British academic who's now in Canada, who actually, interestingly, comes from the psychiatric field, but
Wow.
raised a really interesting issue around pathways out of poverty being better for people who have some connection in some way or form. And in this instance, it was my gardener, right? Even though I know the informal settlement, but in this instance, it was my gardener who, when COVID started, printed some materials for him in South African languages and some bars of soap to take back, and left it to the community to kind of work it out themselves, how they wanted to do the education. But Prof. Mackenzie raises an interesting issue around one of the pathways out of poverty is where someone living in an impoverished community actually has access to someone who has networks. And that opens up opportunities that those people would not be able to access on their own. And I think, if people want to start with people and people who they want to assist. And from there, it's likely to grow. Alhamdulillah, Julie, I mean, unsolicited, just through sharing the story. And I mean, I don't want to create an NGO necessarily and all the accountability issues that go with that. So right now it is being run through the business, but unsolicited, I've had 2 people come forward and donate funds into the initiative. And, I'm just hoping that people listening to this show say, well, this is in my area, exactly what you're saying. You might have a piece of land that someone can grow vegetables on. I mean, just those soccer balls, Julie, just seeing, for what many of our kids, a soccer ball as a gift would not be considered a big deal. But seeing 50 to 100 children and their eyes light up to get a soccer ball, which they're sharing between them, or bibs, which they're sharing between them. It's not like every child has received. But, just a reminder of those of us who, alhamdulillah, have been blessed with more from Allah, have an obligation not to another human being, but to our Creator, to use our rizq in the interest of others.
Alhamdulillah, 2 questions that pop up at me, Rihanna, is the sustainability of such a project. Is there not going to be a time where you're not going to be able to any longer, number one? Are you arranging, you trying to get a group of neighbors together to support the initiative? And then perhaps the culture that's being, are you not creating a culture of entitlement? And I say this with kindness, with much kindness. So let's look at those 2 issues, please, because there may just come a time when you're not able to any longer for whatever reason.
So Julie, absolutely, and I think the agreement with Given and Yvonne is that as long as the business is able to support the
Wow.
initiative, it will
Wow.
continue. But of course, my work is such that it's not guaranteed. I do contract work and I sometimes have work and I sometimes don't. So the agreement up front was if work dries up on my side, unfortunately, I will have to say to them, it can't continue. I mean, then I will just have to make my own contribution, not just Saturdays and Sundays, but it will become 7 days a week that I would have to do it. So that's on sustainability. And then, Julie, can I be honest with you around, getting the rest of the neighborhood involved? I have set up a WhatsApp group, but it's an admin only WhatsApp group where I post because I don't have any inclination to want to set this up in a way where I have to deal with many sideshows. I run a business and I want to focus on running my business so that my
Okay.
business can get the funds to support
Right.
this initiative and more. So I know that that sounds horrible, but
Yeah,
I'm hoping that
you might end up having too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
and can I say, quite frankly, just the fact that I set up the group as an admin only posts as already I've had people say, so why can't I? And yeah, so quite honestly, I don't have any inclination for that. But Julie, let me just raise another worrying issue, and I think I want to put this one out there. One of the things we've been finding on the park a lot of is cough mixture bottles, empty cough mixture bottles.
I know where you're going with this. Yes,
And
carry on.
I've just received a WhatsApp message that I think at the Vaal University of Technology, 2 kids have died from a combination of alcohol and cough mixture. And
And also, can I just stop you there, Rihanna? 2 years ago, a young Muslim kid from Bosmont died from ingesting cough mixture and Coca-Cola. So never mind the alcohol. This was a combination of cough mixture and Coca-Cola.
and so, Julie, I want to really put out, I mean, I've been kind of investigating this issue with SAHPRA, the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Authority, and apparently the cough mixture bottles that we're finding on the park, if pharmacists do sell them, they're meant to keep a record of who's bought that. And I
Regular
really
over-the-counter cough mixture, because most cough mixtures or all of them do contain codeine. That's the
Yeah.
issue, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is very concerning, Julie. And clearly, I mean, from what I've seen, it's actually a vehicle that arrives in the area. I suspect they are actually Muslim kids, without wanting to brand things one way or the other. This initiative is meant to be a community initiative. It's not restricted by faith or religious belief or any of those things. And it is about connecting the informal settlement into the community. It is about preserving public space for public good and public use, as opposed to the tendency to privatize public space and then shut others out.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate now and suggest that you may be accused of bringing unsavory characters into the area. You're going to be accused and saying that the reason you're finding all of those empty cough mixture bottles in the park is it's coming from the informal settlements and it's not from our community. How do you respond to
I,
that?
Julie,
I'm
I
sure
really
you've
wish
already had.
I really wish people. I really wish people in the informal settlement could afford multiple bottles of cough mixture, which they can barely afford when they genuinely have a cough. Julie, I mean, I think it's about time. In fact, we realize that the growing levels of inequality in this country, the highest Gini coefficient in the world, is the most unsustainable thing. And if we are not willing to address assisting people out of poverty, we are all on this ship together. COVID has shown us that there's nowhere you're going to pack your bag and there's nowhere to go to. Even if you have all the money in the world, you really don't want to be going to the UK or the United States right now. I'm born in South Africa. I am committed, Julie, to making a difference to all South Africans, and quite frankly, quite perturbed by the community I come from and the tendency to other people in a way that suggests that we are flawless. And I don't want to get into those discussions, Julie. Having kids from Slovo playing soccer rather than sitting idle in an informal settlement and taking to drugs, for me, is an important initiative.
A short while ago, I had Zainul Abidin, Zainul Kaji from Okaf talking about World's Week. And in the back of my mind, but unfortunately we ran out of time, they put out amazing webinars and they're supporting the community in a very big way. But I think the one biggest issue in our community or in South Africa or globally is the issue of addiction or drug abuse. And we as Muslims are refusing to look at it squarely in the face, to own up and say that it is rampant in our communities, in our societies, and we now need to do something about it. We'll give to all sorts of causes. We'll hold up the flag for any other cause, but not drug addiction and drug abuse, simply because we don't want to be labeled.
So Julie, I think we've got to take a different approach to the issue of substance abuse. And for me, it is souls who are searching for more meaning in life than our current consumption, consumerist-based, judgmental ways of living. And of course, I think there are amazing community organizations who are specializing in that. So I think you and I both know
not nearly like enough.
Who's doing
not nearly enough, unfortunately.
So, Julie, there are many issues, and I think different people, have a inclination to get involved with different stuff. My inclination is really on public space, public environment, dignity, civic pride, stuff that I'd come to encounter when I was in the city of Joburg, that I'm still encountering in the work I'm doing now. And in fact, if there's one common denominator I'm finding, whether you're talking social issues, economic issues, it is the lack of civic pride. It's the fact that we've retreated into our private spaces and the public realm is increasingly running down. And I'm suggesting, let's go out of our private spaces. Let's take ownership of our public spaces. Whilst we're doing that, let's create opportunities for others. And all kinds of other work that other people are doing is meaningful and needs to continue. But this is the kind of work I want to put my energy into.
Alhamdulillah, as always, the activist from day one that I met you, you've not stopped. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you to continue doing your amazing work, continue touching lives in a very positive way. And what I would like to do is to hook up with you again in the near future, just to hear how it's going. But what about people watching us this morning who'd like to get started, but have absolutely no idea how to do it? And I know you'd say it's simple enough, but people do feel intimidated by taking on something like this.
So I think, Julie, the first thing is find a cause that resonates with you. For different people, it's different things. And I think the purpose of why you want to do something. So for me, the first, that's it. And I talk on global platforms about public space and wanted to bring it back home and say, so what about the public space right where I live and my office operates? So what is the issue that resonates with you? Be clear about that. And then, start. I would suggest start small. When I started, it was one soccer ball. And then they said, can we have more? And alhamdulillah, the business was able to get another 3. So start small. You don't have to start big. And Julie, the one difficulty is, does one publicize or does one just do this quietly? And I've struggled with that. Initially, it was like just, under the radar and so forth. But I have felt that if it will inspire others and we get, a movement going of people who are involved in projects for common good, just imagine how those are going to feed off each other. And I think during COVID, you've had the community action networks, the CANs, and, you've seen an outpouring of solidarity that suggests that we don't always have to rely on government. There are things we can do ourselves. And so, suggest that people start telling their stories about what they're doing, even if it's small, so that it inspires the next person and the next person into action. And then we just have this virtuous movement of people doing work for common good. And like bees, like there's just this hive of people doing amazing things. And
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. I certainly am going to uh, dig out some sporting equipment. It may not necessarily be in the code of sport you're thinking about, but maybe we can introduce a different code of sport as well, and see how we can get involved. Inshallah. I commend you once again, my dear friend, for being so brave and for the fact that you put your money where your mouth is. You know, a lot of us are just talking heads. We talk all the time, but we talk in no action. And I admire you. You are talk and you are action. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your efforts, go well, and I will hook up with you again sometime soon.
Shukran, Julian. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to sustain the Barefoot Facilitator, because it's actually only through him that this work has been possible.
Ameen. 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 Salaam alaikum. Take care, and we'll talk some more.
Shukran, Julie.
It is exactly 12:30, and I'm so amazed by these amazing people I've had on the show this morning. It makes you think that a lot of people want to see change. They want to be a part of the change in however small a way they possibly can. And I commend people such as Rihanna Edwards, Rihanna Musaji, and my next guest, Junaid Bayat. I understand he's the world's leading kids and youth skills development coach. He's also one of the most loved, quoted, and followed study skills trainers, not today, but in history. Let's take a break, and when we get back, we're going to be joined by Junaid Bayat.